Good evening. My name is Parker Grace, and during this short video, I will overview my final centrifuge for Summer Clinic 2026. Now, before we get into the centrifuge itself, we have to talk a little bit about COVID and lipids. Now, as we all know, because we all lived through COVID and that lockdown experience, vaccines were they were slow to come out. COVID was very intricate in that it had many strands associated with it. And what researchers found out, right, and this is a Cleveland Clinic article, researchers found out that these lipids could essentially be used as a transport vessel for vaccines into the cytoplasm or the brain of each cell. So this is a 2021, May 6th, 2021 article by Chemical and Engineering News highlighting research done by Moderna and MIT, where they figured out that they could use these lipids, which is an insoluble, or it's insoluble in water, but it's soluble in other things such as oil or fat cells, right? And these lipids can be used as essentially, like I said, a transport to help administer vaccines through the brain of the cell, through the outer walls and into the brain of the cell, where the cell will then accept it as a vaccine as opposed to, a threat or something that should be attacked. So this research was able to come to the conclusion that if we used lipids, specifically for mRNA vaccines or the medicated RNA vaccines, that as long as you have a lipid, right, as long as you have a shell, a nano shell that is what they call like almost interchangeable or adaptable, you can make one shell that takes, an infinite number of vaccines. As long as it follows this similar structure, as long as it fits in this structure, you can put a vaccine in there and it will be able to be administered safely, barring health issues or allergies, into the patient, and it will have a higher chance of being accepted by the individual. Now, how do you get these lipids? Because it's all well and good if we have these these complex chemical formulas with no meaningful way of actually producing it. And that's where this centrifuge comes in. Producing lipids through a centrifuge is not a new process by any means, but it is a reliable one. When this was first patented, they would take a methanol and a chloroform, and then whatever usually a protein they would want to separate the lipid out of. In some school examples and like collegiate chemistry courses, they used an egg yolk. So they put the methanol, the chloroform, and the egg yolk in, and when those two react with each other, it's able to grab the lipids in the egg yolk, and pull it out of whatever medium it's in this case, the egg yolk. So here is my centrifuge. So we have a kind of a double vial, which is on a 12-volt motor at a 30-degree angle. So it's if you were to look from the top, it is conical. It is conical motion. And then we have a 5-volt motor and a servo for one vial. So the servo will rock back and forth to 45 degrees in each direction, and this motor will spin, giving you kind of two movements in the Z plane, just with this one vial. So this little key has 4 buttons, or press the button that has 4 modes. So the first mode is just the 12-volt motor. Mode 2 is just the spin motor. Mode 3 is just the servo. And then mode 4 is all of them together. Then the last mode, if you were to press it after they're all on, is to turn it back off again. So entering mode 1 is just the centrifuge. Mode 2 is the motor. Mode 3 is the servo, that rock, and mode 4 is all of them, right? There's no interference. And the final mode is it off. Now the sad thing is that the motor driver board, the L298, which I can show you when I take off the lid here, this motor driver board does not actually allow for PWM or pulse width modulation. So sadly, this motor is stuck at its, whatever 5-volt RPM it has, which is something I'd like to change for the future. There's a couple things that I'd like to change. First among which, making the box bigger so I don't have to do all this kind of wire spaghetti. And just a couple other small things. These clips they're not as nice as I kind of envisioned them in my head. They work well. They work well in where I can take this plug here and just separate it from the centrifuge itself, and just simply by pulling it out. But it doesn't look as clean as I kind of had envisioned. But apart from that, this is the centrifuge. It is able to retain the water bottles in there, the little 14-ounce vials, pretty well. There's no real issues with stability that I noticed. I should have made this stand a little more substantial. That would have been something else I would have changed, is made the stand a little more substantial and possibly attached it, maybe with like a little like bracket or bridge or something to the actual box. But overall, kind of iteration is a core part of engineering. And I'm happy to admit that there are things I would change. And that's all a part of growth. But overall, this is the final centrifuge for Summer Clinic as it stands.